There comes a time in life when something stirs inside. It's not always clear, and it's not always comfortable. But it's a persistent feeling that something has to change. A way of thinking. A habit. A perspective on the world. That moment often marks the beginning of a turning point. Not on the outside, but within. A quiet yet powerful inner shift. A change in mindset. Positive thinking is often misunderstood. Some people see it as naive or as a way of denying reality. Others reduce it to motivational slogans with little depth. But in its true nature, positive thinking is much more than an attitude. It's a mental posture, a life strategy, a way of thinking that influences every decision, every reaction, and every direction. The ability to consciously choose constructive thoughts, even in moments of uncertainty, radically transforms our daily experience. It's not a method for avoiding problems. It's a way of facing them with different energy, with stronger emotional intelligence, and with calm confidence. Positive thinking does not deny challenges. It looks them in the eye, then chooses to interpret them in a way that leads to action, learning, and growth. In this video, we will explore the immense power of positive thinking and how it can lead to real, lasting, and measurable growth, both internally and externally. This is not just a motivational concept. It's a strategy. And those who understand it do not live the same kind of life as everyone else. Welcome to CELFA, the growth mindset. Here, we don't suffer through life. We build with it. We move forward with clarity, inner strength, and responsibility. Positive thinking is not about pretending that everything is fine. It's not about forcing a smile or ignoring the hard parts of life. It is built on a fundamental truth: the way we think directly influences the way we live. What we feed our minds becomes visible in our behaviors, in our decisions, and in our relationships with the world. Everything starts with a simple observation: the thoughts we repeat daily shape our perception of reality. Someone who constantly tells themselves they are unlucky, incapable, or undeserving will eventually believe it, and that belief becomes their reality. On the other hand, someone who chooses to believe that they can learn, grow, and adapt, even in the face of difficulty, creates a more constructive and stable inner world. It's essential to understand that positive thinking is not an illusion. It is a filter. And like all filters, it changes how we perceive things. Faced with the same situation, two people can have completely different responses. One sees an obstacle. The other sees a challenge, a lesson, or an opportunity to grow. It's not the event itself that creates the difference. It's how we interpret it. This ability to think positively is not a gift reserved for a few lucky people. It is a skill. A mental discipline that anyone can develop through awareness, practice, and repetition. Just like a muscle gets stronger with use, the mind becomes more resilient, more focused, and more confident as it is trained to choose useful and constructive thoughts. Positive thinking doesn't ignore facts. It simply refuses to be trapped by the worst-case scenario. It sees possibility, even when the situation is difficult. It builds an inner strength that is not dependent on external conditions. By cultivating positive thinking, we learn to take perspective, to manage emotions, to transform setbacks into useful experience, and to face life's challenges with more clarity and commitment. It is not a passing trend. It is a mental foundation, a pillar of long-term personal development. Personal growth doesn't begin with visible success or grand gestures. It begins quietly, in a place no one else sees, the mind. It's in how we think that the first real changes begin. And this is where positive thinking becomes a powerful tool. Positive thinking isn't just about having nice ideas. It's about changing how we interpret the events that happen to us. When a challenge appears, some see it as a failure, a dead end, or a punishment. Others, with a different mental posture, see it as an opportunity, a test, a chance to improve. That difference in interpretation eventually creates two completely different life paths. Our thoughts influence our emotions. And emotions drive our energy, our actions, and our resilience. If someone fills their mind with fear, doubt, or resignation, they will likely give up before they even begin. But if they nurture thoughts of confidence, learning, and progress, they build the momentum needed to move forward, even through uncertainty. There is a natural dynamic between thought, emotion, and action. Every thought produces a feeling. Every feeling influences behavior. And every behavior produces a result. When this chain is built on negative thoughts, the results are often frustrating or limited. But when this chain is supported by strong, positive thinking, it leads to learning, adaptation, creativity, and endurance. This is how positive thinking fuels growth. It becomes the root of a more balanced and intentional system. It acts as an internal engine that helps us rise after a fall, try a new method when the first doesn't work, and believe in the process, even when the results take time. Positive thinking doesn't guarantee immediate success, but it provides a stronger way to face each step. Growth is not always fast or visible, but when the mind is aligned with the desire to move forward, each step becomes a meaningful victory. It's one thing to understand positive thinking in theory, but it is in real-life situations that it becomes truly meaningful. It's when we face frustration, pressure, or unexpected problems that we can see the strength of our mental posture. Imagine someone who goes through a job interview and doesn't get selected. The automatic negative thought might be, "I'm not good enough." That thought leads to disappointment and possibly giving up. But a positive thought might say, "Maybe this position wasn't meant for me. I've gained experience, and I'll keep improving." The failure becomes fuel for adjustment. Now think about someone starting a new career or project. They compare themselves to others and begin to doubt, "I'm behind. I'm too late." But with positive thinking, the interpretation shifts. Everyone starts somewhere. I'm exactly where I need to be to learn what I need to learn. That simple shift changes the emotional climate and encourages progress. Positive thinking also plays a role in relationships. When someone receives criticism or feels rejected, the negative reaction might be anger, sadness, or withdrawal. A more constructive interpretation might be, "This feedback says more about the other person than about me. I'll stay true to my values." In stressful daily situations, like when everything feels out of control, negative thinking says, "Nothing is working. This day is ruined." But positive thinking says, "I'm doing the best I can today. This moment does not define who I am." These small mental adjustments, when repeated, change the atmosphere inside. They influence how we focus, how we react, and how we recover. Positive thinking is not a slogan. It is a daily discipline. A way to respond consciously, not react automatically. Positive thinking doesn't mean living in denial or escaping reality. It's an inner practice, and like any form of training, it meets resistance. That's why it's important to recognize the most common obstacles, not to avoid them, but to learn how to move beyond them with awareness. One of the main obstacles is the habit of self-criticism. Many people have learned to judge themselves harshly, to downplay their successes and overemphasize their flaws. They live with an inner voice that repeats negative messages. "You're not good enough, you'll never succeed, you always fail." Over time, this voice becomes a constant brake on personal growth. To weaken its impact, it's essential to practice self-respect and develop inner kindness. That means correcting ourselves with clarity, but without harshness. Another frequent obstacle is the surrounding environment. It may be toxic relationships, discouraging messages, or a constant exposure to negative news and conversations. Even someone who wants to think positively can be worn down by what surrounds them. In these cases, it's not always about escaping everything, but about filtering consciously. Choosing what we listen to, who we spend time with, and how we protect our mental space becomes a form of mental hygiene. The past is also a powerful obstacle. Many people remain stuck in past experiences, rejections, failures, or painful events. These memories create limiting thoughts. "I'm not capable, it never works for me, it's too late." To move forward, we must learn to reframe the past. Not to deny what happened, but to read it differently. The goal is to find meaning in the experience, even when it was painful. Healing often begins with a new interpretation. Perfectionism is another hidden enemy. Some people believe that everything must be perfect before they start a project or move forward. They wait for ideal conditions, which rarely arrive. Positive thinking means accepting to move forward without having every answer. Growth happens through imperfect steps, not perfect plans. Doubt is also a constant companion. It appears in moments of fatigue, change, or uncertainty. It whispers, "What if it doesn't work? What if I fail again?" The goal is not to erase doubt completely, but to prevent it from taking control. It's possible to act while feeling uncertain. Confidence grows through action, not just by waiting for clarity. These obstacles are normal. They are not signs of weakness, but they can be recognized and transformed. Positive thinking does not eliminate all problems. It offers a new way to face them, with more strength, more clarity, and more control over how we respond. Positive thinking is not something that happens by accident. It must be nurtured, trained, and maintained. It's not just for life's big moments, but a mindset that's built in everyday routines. Fortunately, it can be strengthened with simple, consistent habits. The first habit is to begin each day with mental alignment. In the first minutes after waking up, the brain is especially receptive. This is the perfect moment to set a constructive tone. Before checking the phone or jumping into the day's tasks, take 1 or 2 minutes to focus on a grounding thought. It could be something like, "Today, I choose to stay centered," or "I have the right to progress at my own pace." Repeating these statements with sincerity gives direction to your thoughts for the rest of the day. The second habit is becoming aware of your internal dialogue. You don't need to force yourself to be positive all the time, but it's helpful to observe which thoughts are coming back again and again. When a negative thought appears, pause and ask, "Is this really true, or is it fear talking?" Then choose a more helpful version. For example, "I'll never succeed" becomes "I'm learning, and that matters." Journaling can also help strengthen positive thinking. At the end of the day, writing down 3 things that went well, even small ones, shifts the focus away from frustration and towards progress. This simple act boosts emotional balance, encourages gratitude, and supports long-term resilience. Visualization is another powerful tool. By spending just a few minutes a day imagining yourself calm, focused, or successful, you prepare the brain to respond that way in real life. These mental rehearsals influence behavior and reinforce confidence. Finally, it's important to pay attention to mental nutrition. The mind is like an ecosystem, it becomes what it's fed. Replacing a few minutes of scrolling or passivity with inspiring content, uplifting books, or encouraging conversations changes the internal climate. Positive thinking becomes easier when your environment supports it. None of these actions are dramatic, but repeated consistently, they change the baseline. Thinking positively is not a one-time effort. It's a mental lifestyle. It's about planting seeds every day that eventually grow into inner strength and clarity. Conclusion: positive thinking is not a reward for people who already succeed. It is not a luxury or a motivational trick. It is a decision, a personal, quiet, daily decision that shapes how we live, how we act, and how we grow. Every thought sets a direction. Every belief feeds a behavior. Every interpretation shapes our relationship with ourselves and the world. That's why it is essential to reclaim ownership over our mental space. To choose what we think, what we believe, and what we cultivate internally. Positive thinking is not about denying hardship. It is about facing it with a different posture. It's the refusal to be dominated by fear, pessimism, or defeat. It's about giving yourself permission to evolve, even if the process is slow or uncertain. The power of positive thinking is not based on appearances. It does not depend on external circumstances. It is built from within. It shows up in how we speak to ourselves, in the decisions we make when no one is watching, and in how we approach challenges with calm and resilience. True growth begins when we stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating inner clarity. It begins when we choose to stop being spectators of our mental life and start becoming the authors of it. It begins when we understand that mindset, more than context, determines direction. This inner work takes attention, patience, and often courage. But it is worth it, because over time, it becomes a strength. A quiet, unshakable strength. A force that changes how we think, how we speak, how we act, and ultimately, how we live. Positive thinking, when cultivated, becomes a foundation. It builds bridges where others see walls. It restores energy when everything seems stalled. It guides us from where we are now to where we want to go. And that, ultimately, is what it truly means to grow.